Well, it looks like this has adhered pretty well. At least I don't see any bubbles or rises in it that when I look across it. Nothing real pronounced. So I am going to trim it. I used to trim it by laying it upside down on the mat and just lining around the mounting board to trim off the excess photograph. But the problem is if you catch a little bit of the wood, it can kind of make a mess of things as you're trimming. So I've started to try to use it by just trimming it, pulling the razor blade, just a razor blade towards you. So I'll give you a demonstration of that. So I'm going to start at the long end, but rather than start at the very end, I'm going to cut in a little bit and then trim it back once I get in. So going up against the wood, and once again I'm feeling the catch a little bit of that surface if it's not perfectly smooth, but it's not a big problem because even when I cut in here a little bit like that, I'm going to actually sand this edge so that it's just slightly in and then stain along the edge of the paper. So even if it's not a perfect trim job, see right there's some roughness that created a problem for me that I'm still going to be able to, and it took off some of the stain, but it's still not going to be a disaster because I am going to sand those edges, just round them off slightly. So I'm catching this back piece here. Yeah, any kind of change in the surface creates a problem, but that sanding is what will remedy it. So on this, try this one and see if it works a little better. Some people don't have very much trouble with this, but I do. And so that's another reason for sanding. I see a little bit of the glue that was on the stickum, so, and I'll backtrack on this. Hopefully that's in the camera. Another thing I noticed, I ended up not getting this laid out exactly the way I wanted to. It's not going to be a disaster, but I'm starting to think that I like laying the panel down on the photograph face down. But anyway. Yeah, if that surface isn't smooth, see, I really barely am trimming anything off the photograph there. But you can't tell, obviously. And then in here. And the last edge. So anyway, there's the mounted photograph. As I said, I'm going to take a sander with about 100 grain sandpaper and just very carefully, not totally round it, but just create a little bit of rounding across this to kind of even it out around the whole thing. And then the wax will I'm not going to let the wax drip over onto this. I'm going to put tape there, but it will go out to the edges, the wax, right at the tape. After I've rounded those edges, and I'm going to stain the paper on the white side here along with whatever I've kind of roughed out with the sander, and that's it. So it worked pretty good. Some drawbacks, but live and learn. This is my mounted photo on the panel after I sandpapered with my sander. Here's my sander I used with 100 grit paper and sanded around the edges to create just a little bevel on the edges. And then I took I used a paper towel and just lined as carefully as I could along the edges of the paper, etc. And then put another coat of stain on the sides of my frame. And actually, when you stand back from it, it's just a very, very thin black line around the edges of the piece. So any problems I had cutting it against the uneven wood, it was solved, and I think it looks pretty good. There's a little shade on it, but otherwise it looks good. Now here's something with my first coat of wax, and what I do is I tape, that's green tape around the edges. I don't want the wax to get on the edges of it. I just don't think it adds much to it myself. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not sure what I want to do with the wax. I mean, how I want to, I'm going to put another layer on and fuse it and just see how it works and develop my style as far as encaustic coating of my photographs.